Hi and welcome to another episode of the Getting Things Done podcast. My name is Morten and I'm here as always with my good friend and colleague Lars Hendriksen. Privet, Lars.
Privet, Morten. Good to see you as always and looking forward to recording another episode with you. We always start off the podcast by reiterating the purpose of the podcast, which is to help you learn GTD or become even better GTDers. So as always, we hope that this episode supports you in that. If you're listening for the first time, if you're new to GTD or need a refresher, we recommend you go back and listen to episodes 1 through 6 of the podcast to get an introduction to the basics. This is episode number 70 of the podcast, and today's topic is to dive into some more of the listener questions that you guys are sending in. But before we do that, I thought I just wanted to clarify, because I've heard from several of you now out there that had connected the faces and the voices wrong. So you thought my voice was Morten's and the other way around. So today, for those of you watching, you can see that I'm now wearing the Danish national jersey. I'm Lars, I'm the Danish half of the podcast. Morten is the other guy. I'm the left half of the podcast graphic. Morten is on the right. So just for those of you who were a bit confused on that, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and I put on the national team soccer player team shirt today. The official one is light blue. No, of course I'm joking. But I don't know how they can confuse us, Lars.
No, they should really be able to hear that I'm the guy from Denmark.
Yeah, they should. Oh, yeah. But good. Now we have, those of you can see us, and also this lower third, we have names here, so that might be a good idea for you. So, but thank you, Lars. And you are not finished, but I think we are going into what's happening today. We are past a milestone. That's why I was a little excited, not because you were in the Swedish national soccer team shirt. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We're confusing everyone.
No. So, but we are 3 years.
That's true. On May 29th, the podcast turned 3 years old.
Yeah, so, wow. Whee! Congratulations for us. And for those of you who's been following us for some time, if you want to give us a present for our 3 years and encourage us to continue, please give us a rating where you can rate us. I actually just stumbled on that we have, I think, 18 5-star reviews on Spotify, which was, I didn't notice that before. I just opened the app, looked just to see how it does. Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you for all of them. For those of you who have not, this is if you listen in Spotify, go there. If you listen in Apple Podcaster, please go and do the same there. If you like us, that is. If you don't, stop listening. So, any words from you, Lars, on the 3 years, except that we didn't believe that we would do this for 3 years, or we didn't believe the success we would have?
No, we went back, as we talked about in the pre-show, we went back and I had to double check the calendar to make sure it was actually 3 years old, because it really didn't feel that way. It's really flown by. So, a lot of fun. So great to connect with you guys, and looking forward to 3 more years.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if we passed that yet, but we are getting close to passing 250,000 downloads or something like that, which is way more than we thought we would be ever doing. So I'm super happy for all of those of you who are subscribing. You are inspiring to us, and thank you for the listener questions and for your ratings and stars and thumbs up and sharing in social media. That helps us a lot and helps us spread the word that Getting Things Done can help you in your life, get a richer life, a life without stress and overwhelm. Who doesn't want that? Yeah. So, I think you were in the middle of. Did we finish the intro? Did you finish that? Or
So we're ready to jump on the questions.
Yes, and we have a listener question. Do you want me for once to try and read this?
No. This is my area of responsibility. So in the podcast area of focus horizon.
I'm sorry, I will not do that. Okay, Hadi, go.
The first question is from Calgary in Canada. Iman saying, hi, thanks for your awesome podcast. Thank you, Iman, for listening. I started GTD a while. I have a robust system in the Notion app with all of the components of GTD. I capture all of my ideas with BrainToss or my notebook, but then I'll be faced with a long list that I couldn't clarify and organize. Doing clarification with a huge list is a heroic action. I like that phrasing. So in this way, I am stuck with a long list of captures that increase every moment and makes me more anxious. Thanks. If you have any suggestions, regards from Iman in Canada.
Indeed, it is a heroic action. So what would your take be, Lars, on this first? What's your first idea?
So the question is really that long inbox, that long list of things in there, or in the physical world, that big pile of stuff that might be in your inbox. And you're right, it requires that hard thinking. That's where you need to wake up the captain to really go through and actually figure out what you're going to do with all of these things. And first off, it's very good that you are in the habit of being good at capturing. Because it can really be, at least I remember for myself, and I see this in other GTDers as well, that they will tend to hold back because they recognize that there might be a challenge in having that long list. So great that these are being captured. But I was just listening to, I think on the way here to the office, I was listening to the GTD Live part that was recently released in the podcast. So for those of you who haven't listened to it, please do also follow the official GTD podcast. They just released the one of the old recordings of a seminar with David. A lot of good stuff in there, and he just mentioned that fact that those long lists, if you don't deal with them and handle them well, they'll generate as much stress as they will relieve. So, and I think that's exactly what Iman's experiencing. I would say it's like that tunnel. The only way out is through. So the things that you might want to consider is, what's holding you back? What's the challenge with actually getting through that inbox? And it can be many different things. Maybe a good idea would be to watch out for having the time. Maybe blocking the time, making sure you're doing these at the right times during the day when you have the right amount of energy, because you do need that energy to actually make good decisions about what has shown up in your inbox. So as a starting point, that might be one place to go. What do you think, Morten?
No, I'm thinking that that if you are living a rich life and capturing everything that has your attention, that might be you live a rich life. That's a good thing, I think. And there is several things we don't know here, so we have to assume and try and be a little detectives here, I think. So if you, Iman, have capturing a lot of stuff, but are not setting aside enough time to do the real clarification of them, so you don't take stacks of unclear things and put it in your system, which doesn't seem like you're doing, because you call that a heroic action, as I do agree with you. But but if you don't set aside enough time for clarification, that might be one. And the second that I was reminded of first is that maybe you are capturing things that you shouldn't capture. Or you should capture everything that has your attention, but when you are clarifying, you should be a little harder clarifying. And with that, I mean addressing what I call your bullshit filter, or as my son would call, seriously, Dad, are you going to do that? Or seriously, Iman, I'm like, are you going to do that? And then just be a little tougher, because there is always more to do than there is time. In most people's lives, it is. And just to make sure that you capture anything that has your attention, that you might want to do something about, you are going to do something about that, or that you have a worry on, is a very good idea. But it doesn't mean that you write it down, you need to do something with everything. Some things just seemed like a good idea at the time, and then just toss it away, because it doesn't. Some things don't survive the light of day and clarity. David says that I have had some of my best and worst ideas, and I've tossed them. When I captured them, I have them. So but to be a little adamant on tossing things, I think that's a good idea.
I just did that this morning. I was walking through my inbox. I had thrown some pictures in there from a speech that I attended with a Danish brain scientist. I had some really, really cool ideas and some stuff that I might want to use at a later stage, or keep in mind just as ways to explain to people how their minds might be working. So, but when I look through them now, it's like, no, not going to do that. Not going to do that.
No.
And then perhaps another perspective to take on this is also to, figure out if there's some reason other than the mental workload that is to empty the inbox. It can really come from any of the steps. It could be that you're, allergic to that level of thinking that needs to happen to get through that inbox. It could be, so that would be step 2. Step 3 would be that you don't have the right list. So you kind of know that you don't want to clarify because you don't know where to organize it. You don't have a good place to place them. It might be step 4 because you don't want to add to that big list of things that, you already have so many projects. I don't want to go through and clarify because I know I'll add more. Same could be the case for step 5, that you're working from your list, but that list is already long. So I don't want to go through my inbox and add more to that list. So there can really be a lot of different reasons for why that is, but hopefully we hit at least 1 or 2 reasons that might help.
Yeah, David uses the phrase that your list would either attract you or repel you, and so that either you're attracted to them or you're not. It's you're the opposite. You want to do something else when you look at your lists and then to look at them.
Run.
Run. But I don't know how. She says she started GTD for a while, I guess, ago, and which is it sounds like she's fairly fresh at getting things done. So just give yourself time to get good at it. And one of the things that I am reminded of again and again and again, and like for forever, I am reminded of by my coaching clients. In 2 times today, actually, I have coaching clients who need to get better at clarifying. And this is my returning topic all times. Get really good at clarifying. People think they are clarifying. I talked to a long time GTDer who's been doing GTD for a long time, 5, 6, 7 years, and he still had forgotten about he had a little what they would call mom on his list for projects. It says a word of what this is about, not the desired outcome. So to get good at clarifying, getting automating, when we do the course, we talk about, the level 1 fundamentals course, we talk about the Roba Rosa. We have this animated figure there who is learning how to automate this process, and it has to be repeated. Ask yourself the questions from the clarify process. What is it? What does it mean to me? And do I need to do something about it? And if so, what? If you say no, is it trash? Is it reference, or is it something you need to incubate? Or if yes, most likely when you capture it from your brain, is something you want to do something about, then what's the next action? If you're going to do it, then go for the next physical, visible action where you have everything you need. That can be done in one sitting. And then ask yourself, does that take more than 2 minutes or less? Do it. If it takes more than 2 minutes, then delegate it to someone if you can or want. Or postpone it for doing it later. Put it in your calendar if it's urgent and important. If it's not urgent but important, put it in your lists. And consider anything else that's not in those 2 categories not to do it at all. Yeah. And then you will have a list that will attract you, and you will also automate that behavior of clarification, which is absolutely necessary for getting your into 0. And combine that with your seriously, am I ever going to do that? Is it just a stupid idea? Do I really want to commit doing that? Or do I even want to have it on my someday maybe list? I think that a maturity among GTDers are one of the hallmarks is that you are able to say no. Say no to the things you should not do. Not even put them on your someday maybes, because you know that, you know, you activate your bullshit filter saying that, hey, I can put it there, but I will never do it. So why put it there at all? Yeah. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
All right. Hopefully, Iman, that was helpful, at least to some questions to think about, to hopefully help you get across that and get through that heroic action. I like that one. Question number 2 is from Gabor. And it says, "Hi, Morten and Lars," spelled in Danish. We love that. Thank you. First and foremost, thanks for all the effort you're putting into creating episodes. I really enjoy them. You're way above the average productivity podcast quality, actually providing useful advice. Thank you so much for that. There's one practical question I'd like to hear your take on. So you're working off your lists and finish a task that you've picked from there. You tick it off, but what do you do next? In the default case, this was the only next action in your system related to a project, meaning that if you purely work off your list, you're not going to move on that project before you define another next action on it. How/when do you do this? I find myself doing one of 3 things. I keep working on the project, pretty much coming up with a next action on the fly, usually comes naturally. Or I record a note in my inbox that will serve as a trigger to figure out a real next action related to the given project. And the last one is I define on the spot a next action and put it in the right context list before I jump onto the next task. And I find this last one difficult sometimes, as it will pull me into thinking mode as opposed to execution mode, which is not always ideal. Think brain dead zombie afternoons. What's your way of managing this? Thanks a lot in advance, and keep up the great work you're doing. Gabor.
I think he nailed it.
Yeah, that was a very, very good list of options to.
Yeah, and it's because it is one of those 3. And one thing he don't mention, I think, is that you can, and sometimes I do that, if I understand what a project is going to be, what my next actions, maybe I know the 2, 3, 4 next actions, I will record them first in a note field and then just pull out the first one. So if I tick that off as finished, I can then go inside and pull out the next one. And there's a little caveat there: don't plan more than you actually think you can deliver on, so that you don't try to plan. Don't put more than 1 next actions on 1 context list. This is very important. But you can have it in a notes field and go there. That's the only addition I think.
Yeah. No, like you said, it's a great list of possibilities. So I'm guessing is a very seasoned GTDer, I think we'd call it.
Yeah.
I think the one I would focus on is the last one as well. So to define on the spot the next action and put it on the right context list before I jump into another next action, where he says it could be difficult because that will put him back into thinking mode, which is is a very good reflection. I'll say from my perspective, if we take the analogy of a project being a book, the next action being the bookmark as to where you came to, you will often pick up next action, you will do a series of next actions, and you'll get to a spot where you're not able to move forward. So like he says, we want to be sure to capture that somewhere, so we have that next action, we can move forward on it. So for example, in the case, I sent some emails this morning. Some of them ended up on my waiting for list, and that didn't really require any real thinking mode. I was sort of in that track. I was working on that task. That was everything that was present in my mind. So it wasn't really triggering my thinking mode to be able to capture that waiting for. But I can certainly relate to sometimes where you're maybe in a bigger project and you need to, okay, so now we've kind of completed this mini project within the project. So what would be now my next action? So perhaps in those cases, it might be helpful to, sit down, make a note, throw it in the inbox, or whatever the case might be, if you need to pilot for that smart version of yourself.
Yeah, no, I do believe that he's, to do number 2 when you're tired. That is, note that you've stopped there, and I need to create a new action, next action, and toss it in your inbox. Might be a good trigger. So but it also can help that you are, if you're not doing this already, maybe a weekly project sweep might capture that. So if you have a way to depending on how your what's the features of your GTD list system is, so that you can see all the projects and just swipe through them and see if there's a next action there. If you have that possibility to see them together, that might be helpful, and as an alternative to writing it down. But it is more fail-safe to write it down, because some days are more hectic than others, and if you are not having the time to do the project sweep, then you might not capture that. And I do totally agree with Gabor here. That he says it is when you're in execution mode, it's very difficult to go back to reflection and thinking mode. Because it's a whole different, ball game. And I use the analogy, that we have and I think I mentioned this last week as well. What you call that when you are on running the tracks where you are jumping hedge run?
Hurdles.
Hurdles.
A friendly listener on YouTube was kind enough to help us. It's called hurdles.
Thank you. Friendly listener. So the hurdles, the hurdle race is a lot more difficult than the running down the runway of something. A runway on the doesn't have a bend; it just continues, and that's execution mode. When you are executing on your next actions, that is a different gear than stop and start thinking. The hurdle race is where you run and you meet something that's not finished. You need to think about it, and you have to reflect about it, and you have to stop, and that's sometimes very difficult. So Gabor, I think you are a seasoned GTDer. At least you talk like one, so you can pat yourself on the back. You do a lot of the right conclusions, as I would say. So
absolutely,
and for those,
really, that I like to underline that difference in thinking, because it seems to me, at least a lot of people that I talk to that don't know GTD don't really recognize the complexity of the brain, and just I'm always me. I'm always thinking, what's the difference here? So I think it's very nice that he highlights that difference, and just also, like you said, the weekly review will help you catch these things, but ideally we don't want to hang on to that as necessarily wait until you get to that. So great if you could capture them as you go along, but that would then be the safety net. And I just want to shout out, John Kibler was the kind and friendly man who told us that hurdles are what track athletes jump over.
Thank you, John.
Thank you,
setting
John.
us straight.
Yes.
We are the Nordic chipmunks, and we do not always have the words. But we understand GTD fairly well, I would say. So, but this also, what Gabor's insights are also reflecting on Iman's insights, is that because she's at different stage, I think, than Gabor in her maturity towards getting things done. And it's not, we are all in a journey and getting better at getting things done. Me too, you too, we all are. And I said, I'm going to be really good at this when I die, at sometime in the future, hopefully long time from now, but I'm going to get really good at it. And to be a little better every day and get some more insights it's important. And if you're not good at clarification, if you're not taking time to clarify and organize good next actions and good desired outcomes, your execution mode is going to be so much harder. And I had my first virtual coaching today was from a client that's he's climbing uphill. He has too much to do. He's stressed. He can't focus. It's difficult for him. He's in meeting all the time. He has a structure at work that demands his being in the meetings, and he don't have time for clarify. He don't have time for thinking at all, which means that I'm trying to setting him straight and asking him questions like, Okay, so how do you know you're doing a good job? I don't know. And they said, okay, so how could you know? And I think that, setting aside time for reflection, be harder at saying no for some people are necessary. But for most people that are in that situation, just to get good at clarifying and repeating what do I want to achieve? What is this? What does it mean to me? Am I going to do something about it? Yes or no? And so just get good at that. Automate that. So that's my final words on those two. So we have one more, don't we?
Great. We have one last question. The last question was from Alex, and I like that name. That's my youngest son's name as well. He says, "Hi guys, really like your show. Keep it going." Thanks, Alex. We will for another 3 years, at least. He says, I noticed that I struggle with starting/finishing specific types of project. The most recent one is renovate the bath. It doesn't fit the usual do when you're in the right context approach. The thing is, when I write down the goal, the joints in the bath are replaced, and the first step, remove the old joints, I end up with a non-functioning shower. Then I would need to go and buy a new joint mass. He says, I hope that's either correct word or at least understandable. He puts that on his shopping list and then buy the stuff when I'm at the DIY market. That could take a couple of days. After that, I would do the new joints in my home context and do that when I have the capacity. All in all, I think there are some projects which need to be thought out and planned through from the beginning to the end. This project will probably be done on one weekend when I have bought the joint mass and when I know that there are no other plans for this specific weekend. What do you guys think about this? Thanks for your reply and for the upcoming show, or both. All the best from Alex.
Thank you, Alex, for your question. And he's right. Some projects need to be thought through. You don't need to have all the details, but you need to. David would say, you need to think enough to get it off your mind. And to understand when it's off your mind, you have to fine tune your brain to understand, is it still in there? Is it revisiting you? Or are you regurgitating like a cow? Are you a cow regurgitating things that's not... regurgitating things that's not finished. And if it come back, maybe you're not thought it through enough. You have not clarified it enough. So you know exactly. One of my favorite analogies is your winter tires. I don't remember that one, but that was one of my seminar participants who says, I have winter tires on my we do empty your head exercise, a mind sweep, and he had winter tires, and I asked him, what is this? Well, I have to change them to summer tires. And then then do you have everything you need to do that? And he said, no. And then he started thinking, I understand he has not thought this through properly, and he ended up, no, I need maybe I need new tires. This is what I have a nagging thinking about it. Maybe I need to change the tires. Okay, how will I see you find that out? Well, I need to measure the depth of the what you call it,
now we have
first,
to ask again.
First,
John, can you please comment?
Yeah, we need an instant translation here. No, but in the car tires, in the rubber, there are some, and I'm sure I know this word if I start thinking about the furrows. The depth of the tires needs to be a certain amounts of centimeters or millimeters or inches, if you may. And he didn't know, he didn't know if he would pass the test from the road authorities if he put them on, and he had to figure that out. And he said, "Well, I need to measure that." And I asked, "How do you do that?" "Well, I need the tire depth measure thingy." And I said, "Okay, do you have that?" And, "No, I don't have." "So how can I see you find that?" And he said, "No, I have to go and buy that." "And where would you buy that?" And started thinking, "Now I will go to my DIY shop, or Claes Olsson, as we call them here in Norway. Many of them are specific chain of that kind of hardware stores. And okay. Then I asked him, do you have everything you need to do that, to figure that out? Yes, and he got that on his. He didn't even put it on the list because it takes less than 2 minutes to figure that out. He can go onto his browser on his phone and do a search in clausolsson.no and found that they actually had this thingamajig, and then put it on a shopping list that he will shop when he left the seminar. And to see the relief on his mind when he actually understood, he thought that through to the next action. And I think that's what Alex is alluding to, because if you take your time to think something through, you will understand that, well, I can't do this before I have done that, and I don't have this, so I have to buy this before, and to take the time to understand enough so you can plan enough to get it off your mind and into your system. And your system is way better than you are to understand when something is not planned right. That's why it will pop up in your brain again, because it will say, you haven't thought this through now, Alex. I'm coming visiting you again. Or Lars, for that matter. If you don't, or Morten also, because sometimes I don't do this 100% myself. You know, we are infallible. We're not infallible. We are fallible. Again, I'm sure we're going to have somebody correcting me if I continue using that. We are not infallible. We do mistakes. But to be able to do a good job at this as best as we can at our ability at the time makes it a lot easier to think the process through. And David would say that you need to slow down to speed up, which meaning that you need to slow down your thinking so that you can plan good. So when you are doing, you have no friction. You just do, engage. Whew. So, any additions or thoughts?
Yeah, I think the function, the what happens in your mind is exactly the same. I think in Alex's case, I think he does have the right next action, but there is just some planning that is needed to make this a successful project and make it something that works. I mean, it could be replacing the something in the bathroom. It could be replacing the toilet. Obviously, you're not going to just the next action. Well, I'm going to go over there and loosen the bolts and just remove it. Obviously, you need to probably have
your family is going to be angry.
Be ready to replace a new one, right? So that's kind
First
of the
toilet, Dad.
Yeah, there's just a hole in the ground. So obviously some projects do require some thinking. I think when I talk to people about it, it will really depend. So let's say you had a X number of projects going on. Many of them will be fine with the well-defined desired outcome and the next action to move forward on that. But some of them, a certain percentage of them, will require more than that. Some will have some more material. Some will have the need for a natural planning model exercise to really think it through. Perhaps that could be an option in this case, or just maybe outline the project, kind of like what you were responding to with the former question of just having that outline, get an idea of what are the steps actually in this. So I think when Alex said at the end is, this will probably be done in one weekend when I have what I need to do it. And I know that there are no other plans that will get me away from that. So that kind of thinking will be necessary for some projects. And yeah, one way to discover it is just like you said, you'll notice that something is off in this case, and then that requires some different kind of planning. So how are you going to do that? Are you going to block off time in your calendar to make sure that you can then do that? And I can actually directly relate to that. I had an agenda item for my wife. We have a window that we bought that we need to replace in the summer house. And it's sitting there in the garage waiting for us to go over there and actually change it ourselves. But when do we do that? Well, we do need the time. We need to make sure that the weather is fine so it doesn't start raining in the middle, things like that. So some projects do require that kind of thinking. And that actually is related to, well, we also need to paint that part of that wall on the house. So that's kind of a project that will then kick into gear once that other one is completed. So, some projects will you can do your outline in whatever way you want. Could be bullets, could be a Gantt chart, could be however works well for you. But yeah, some projects do require you to think a bit more, plan a bit more.
Yeah. One of the things that I've found very beneficial that you might want to consider, Alex, is that when I am faced with one of these kind of projects that it kind of like, you understand you've not planned it well enough. You haven't flushed it out enough. So it comes back to you. I'm just, I'm over that hump for one of my major projects. And what helped me a lot is that I made a mind map. Just to, because when you have a lot of moving parts and you can't see them in relation to each other, then it makes, and in one project it helps to flush them out in a mind map. I do it digitally. I have a mind map tool that I use, and just to see how, and then you can flush it out and you can make connections between the different parts, what need to come here. It kind of helps you look at the project clearer than before, and if you add on top of that the natural planning model, we have an episode on that. I'm sure Lars will be very nice and link to that episode in the show notes if you would like to go back to the natural planning model, because that also helps you plan your projects. What's the purpose? Why do we need to do this? What's the standards? What's the framework? And what's the vision? How does it look when it's, while success kicks in? What could be relevant here? And what's the plan? What's the project or sub-projects? And what's the next actions? So you move things forward. And I remember before I started on this, I had this feeling inside. Something is not sitting right. My wife, we have an expression between us that could be what David would call cognitive cognition. So if you have something that doesn't sit, let me see if I can show my hands for those on video. It doesn't sit exactly. You need to be on top of each other, and it had to sit. This is our cognitive cognition sign to each other. Something is off here with what we are talking, or we are not in alignment, or I am not in alignment with my thinking. How do I get there? How do I get out of the rut and into, planning and getting things off my mind so I can get more present in the moment and doing more the right stuff without things bugging me. So if it's not off your mind, it's on your mind, it's in the wrong place. So plan enough to get it off your mind, but not more. Not overdo it.
Yeah, and that's part of I think the art as well, that recognizing that some projects do require this extra bit of planning, instead of you don't have to take this approach for make a full Gantt chart of changing the to summer tires.
No,
but just thinking it through as much as you need for the different projects.
Slow down.
Key skill. Yeah, exactly. And just actually on my list right now, I have a next action to review a Gantt charting tool, because I just find that I have some projects right now that are sort of dependent, and it kind of feels like something's wrong. I need to do something about them. I need a better overview, a different overview. I need to reflect and talk through some things, or talk to myself about some things. And I think a Gantt chart might actually be helpful in that case. So investigate whatever might work for you. Again, no need to go high tech. You can go low tech. Whatever works for you.
Good. I don't have anything else to add on this. Do you reckon we are done for today?
I think we made it. Thanks again to Alex, to Gabor, to Iman for the questions. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's a lot of fun to get these questions. I really like it. I think we get some fun episodes. I think, at least based on the feedback that I'm getting, that these are sort of valuable perspectives and examples of how people use GTD differently, and what they might want to consider. So keep those questions coming. Podcast at GTDnordic.dk. It is in the show notes.
Yes, and I know that we get a lot of listeners coming through from Reddit. So if you're on Reddit, a little post there with a little something about the podcast would be beneficial for us. I'm just begging now. Give us a present. No, but to be honest, Reddit has been one of the most important sources for listeners, I think. So if you're a Redditor, feel free to post about us in the GTD forum there. So subreddits. Okay, Lars, will you take us out?
I will, and I will do that as always by reminding you to head on over to GTDnordic.com to have a look around, find the country websites for each of the Nordic countries. Because on each of those sites, you will find articles about GTD, links to newsletters, all of the different content that we do on social media groups where people discuss GTD. And you'll find, of course, all of the different offerings that we have regarding speeches, coaching, and seminars, both the physical and the virtual ones. If you're outside the Nordics, head on over to gettingthingsdone.com to find your local partners. Lastly, as always, we really hope that you find these episodes valuable. So thumbs up to those of you who send in your questions. We hope that the answers helped you in your quest for getting more in control, getting a clearer mind. And as always, like Morten said earlier, a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcast really helps us. So it helps the discoverability of the podcast. Let more people know about GTD and learn GTD, which is why we are here. So
and subscribe and hit that notification bell, I hear them say on YouTube. So please do that. If you want to be notified on new episodes that we release on YouTube, that's always a good idea. Depending on which channel you are in, you will get a notification. So, and we do release them in parallel, Lars and I, so you can choose which one you like the best, which is probably exactly the same thing, so it doesn't matter. Well, thank you so much for listening and watching if you're on YouTube. Until next time, stay safe and stay productive. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.